Welcome everybody. I think it's 1:30. So we're starting with a session now on trading tools. It's a bit of a jump from the grid perspective to the trading perspective. My name is Jorn Baayen. I'll be presenting with David Hirschen here in the front, and together with Jorn Baayen, who was sitting there and who was presenting later this afternoon. We founded PortfolioEnergy. So PortfolioEnergy develops and sells trading technology on the back of an open source platform called RTC-Tools. So yeah, let's dive into it. Power trading is all about driving more revenue out of a portfolio of assets. And so I hope you'll forgive us for taking a commercial perspective today. And just to give you a little bit more context, so in the old days, and a few organizations still operate like this, trading would be an exclusively manual operation. So you would have traders looking at market conditions and forecasts for market conditions and deciding how to bid their assets into markets. The state of affairs nowadays is generally a bit different, so it's common for traders to have their own tools. These could be Python scripts, R scripts, built in-house, some more robust, some less robust. And then that's typically paired with generally closed box solutions being sourced from third-party vendors. And then together, that's the tooling landscape they'll use to figure out how to bid their assets into the markets. So at PortfolioEnergy, our mission is to move the market towards more reuse of open source capabilities, because we see between traders that a lot of the same capabilities are being built and replicated again and again. So we're trying to move the market towards more open source, more reuse, and also the use of open core systems where there is incremental IP that needs to be protected. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, we're doing this on the back of an open platform called RTC-Tools. And to explain how this works, we'll first dive into one of the hottest asset classes in the world today. That is the utility-scale battery storage, or battery energy storage systems, BESS in short. But before we go deeper into that, let's take one further step back and take a macro perspective at the energy transition as it unfolds. So the energy transition comes in waves. The first wave was wind. So a slow start in the late 90s, and it took off. There was a period of exponential growth. And now, as of the past year or two, it's beginning to taper off. So it's starting to look like a sigmoid curve. So there's a certain degree of saturation which may or may not be going on. The second wave is solar. So the solar wave started later, but it is a bigger wave because it is much easier to develop solar than it is to develop large wind farms. And the solar wave is very much global. It's happening not just in the West, not just in China, the US, it's happening everywhere in the world. The third wave, which we are also in right now, is that of battery storage. So the growth in battery storage capacity worldwide has been breathtaking. I mean, just look at those curves and look how steeply the amount of gigawatt hours installed if battery storage is skyrocketing upwards. And so, yeah, battery storage is a great trading asset, but the other way to look at it is that it essentially absorbs excess renewable generation and makes that available at a later point in time. Or from a trading perspective, you use it to buy power when it's cheap, and you use it to sell when prices are high. The exponential growth is also being supported by a self-reinforcing process, where as more batteries are installed, the cost of batteries goes down. And as the cost of batteries goes down, the business case improves, and you see more and more and more batteries coming online. It's also interesting to take a brief look at the geographic distribution of this battery capacity. So China is leading, followed by the US, Australia, and Europe. Now, I assume most of you will have seen an image of a grid-scale battery project before, but here's one. So this is the Rangebank BESS in Victoria in Australia. It's a Shell asset, 200 megawatt, 2-hour battery. These days it's a moderately sized asset, so there's an asset being commissioned today which is an 850 megawatt battery in Australia. In Europe, the biggest assets are currently in Scotland, 200 megs, 2-hour, and here in Germany, 220 megs, 1 hour. So now let's take a look at what this has to do with, or how trading tech fits into this picture. So first of all, I apologize for the rough segue between, a nice sunny picture of a battery in Australia and this dashboard in dark mode. But this is what traders, or the kind of information traders will be looking at day in, day out. So what we have here, let me see if this laser pointer is working. I think, can you see? Let's see if it's small. Okay, I'll just talk around it. So one of the key pieces of information here is the middle top graph, which shows forecasts for what the prices in different markets are expected to be doing. So there's a single trace here. It's common to also have multiple traces, multiple views on the way the market is evolving. So we have price forecast in this case for wholesale. This is for the NEM, a market in Australia. And here at the bottom we have prices for reserves, for capacities. And then what the algorithm does is it takes in all that information. It takes in current estimates of state of charge of the battery. You will see a graph with the state of charge in the top left there. And then it figures out, given the information available to it, what the optimal bidding strategy is for the next market interval. So bear in mind that Australia is a market that clears every 5 minutes. What it's computing here is the optimal bids and offers into the market, which you see to the right. And then to the left, you see how the battery system is expected to evolve and perform over the days ahead. Again, bear in mind that this is resolved for every 5 minutes, so this picture is constantly changing. I'll just point out a few core dynamics. I'll not dwell too long on all of these graphs. If you look at the top wholesale energy price graph, you'll see around 2 peaks. There's a peak in the beginning, so it's almost like we're in the middle of a peak price event, and then there is a peak further down. And if you look at the state of charge graph, so state of charge is how much energy there is left in the battery, you see that we're in the middle of discharging the battery during the high price event. We then hold it at 0%, and then there's a little bit of a wiggle in the price signal, which we can still exploit by charging and discharging, and then it charges up to make sure it's positioned to benefit from that larger price peak further down. What you also see here are reserve allocations. So in pink and purple, you see the reserve power which is available, which enables a system operator to call upon the battery to dynamically ramp up and down its imports and exports. Now, the most interesting piece here from an algorithmic perspective is computing the bid-offer stacks. Yeah. This requires taking a view of the uncertainty of the market as it evolves, and this is where This RTC-Tools platform is a very powerful tool that helps us model this and produce highly effective bids and offers. So let's now better understand where RTC-Tools fits in. So yeah, we as PortfolioEnergy, we offer effectively a trading signal API as a service. That API is fed with various types of data. There's the price forecasts, of course, what we saw before. Those can be customer provided. Sometimes we also provide them ourselves. There's, of course, a telemetry stream. What is the battery up to right now? What is the current state of health, state of charge? Are there any outages we need to take into account? Are there any planned outages? What is the situation with the rest of our portfolio? All of that information is fed into the API. The API does its thing and then produces bids and offers, which ultimately are bid into the markets, while there is simultaneous oversight from a trading desk and a 24/7 control room. So our part is we're focused on the API. And so let's double click on this, open it up. And so we see that inside the API, there is a technology stack at the foundation of which lies this open source platform, RTC-Tools. And now let's take a look at the power that this platform affords us. And again, what matters in the world of trading is revenue generation. So we're going to be taking a pure commercial look at this. On the right, we see a report of the performance in terms of dollars generated per megawatt of capacity per year in Australia. So these are all the major batteries which were live in Australia last year. And the one we've highlighted is the highest performing, again, in terms of dollars per megawatt per year, asset in New South Wales. That is the Rangebank battery. And what we've done is we've done a benchmark where we've taken RTC-Tools, the open source platform, and we've done a very, very basic configuration for trading a battery in a single market. So the level one from an RTC-Tools perspective. We did a back test using historical forecasts for the year 2024, and lo and behold, we get a dollar per megawatt per year performance, which is roughly on par with the performance of the best performing asset in the market. Now, do take it with a grain of salt, because it's never possible to exactly replicate the conditions under which an asset operated. I mean, there may have been various unreported outages, etc. So do take it with a grain of salt. But the core message is that with open source logic, we're able to get algo trading performance on par with the best performing assets in the market. So I'll let that sink in for a second, because that means that there is a huge, huge opportunity here. To the right, we see the performance of our commercial product, which takes this open source core and it adds a few layers of proprietary IP on top. And that is able to generate an uplift of 30–40%, which is highly attractive. But just coming down to the point that a basic open source code is able to already be on par with the best performing assets in the market. This is really important. And so also later today, my colleague and co-founder, Tjerk Vreek, who is sitting there, will be presenting this particular open source example in depth. So if you're interested, I highly recommend to attend his talk. He has just 10 minutes, but he'll go into as much depth as he can. So yeah, highly recommend it. If you have no time, you can also visit directly the GitHub repository. We've also put some effort into a nice read the docs page, where the example is explained in some detail. A few words on the story. So where does the RTC-Tools platform come from? Well, it's been around for a while. So the journey starts, well, we put here 2015. It actually started a few years before, say with first prototypes, but it really took off in 2015. So both Tjerk and myself were at Deltares at the time, Deltares being the Dutch National Research Lab for Water Management. And there was an ask from the Dutch state to build out a load flex capability for the fleet of drainage pumps in the Netherlands. So the Netherlands is, a lot of it's below sea level, and so active pumping is required to drain the land. And so the ask was, can there be a perspective that takes not only the water into the account, but also the grid? This all being funded by the state resulted in a fully open source product, papers published in open access journals and so forth, so a fully open solution. And that, caused this to be the start of a journey which we're all still on. So a few years after we started this, it transpired that much of this tech was also highly relevant for operators of hydropower systems, pump storage, reservoirs, etc. And so projects were done. I say were done because it's being open source. Deltares was involved, but so was always TNO and Royal Haskoning and DHV, like large consultancies in the Netherlands. And they all did these projects across the globe, from Canada to Tasmania, looking at hydro, pump storage, and so forth. Fast forward to 2023, David and I were both at Shell. At the time, Shell was investing heavily in the energy transition. At some point, they flew everybody, all the key people in power, over to London for them to meet and plan, which is where David and I first met. David at the time had built Australia's largest virtual power plant and was struggling with some revenue generation issues due to a closed box third-party vendor. We started collaborating and were able to realize a drastic increase in revenue for the portfolio. Recently, we both quit Shell, so Shell has renewed its focus on oil and gas. We decided to pursue different avenues, and we came back together in April this year, also with Tjerk, with whom I had worked at Deltares to found PortfolioEnergy to commercialize this RTC-Tools platform for power trading. Just a few words on what our broader mission is. So our broader mission, like I hinted before, is to transition the algo trading space from a space of closed source solutions, ad hoc R scripts, etc., to one of shared open source code. That's a big transition. We're just getting started. We think there is also a role here to play for the LF Energy. So we hope for collaboration and a joint push to make this happen. And just one more thing we'd like to cover. So David is also going to talk to us around data centers, which is at the moment the biggest, the fastest growing class of assets worldwide, where flex is equally important. David, over to you.
Thanks. I might get that clicker. Thanks. So we thought we'd just touch on other use cases just to give a sense as to how we're planning on using RTC tools over the coming years for optimization challenges around generation and load. So I guess the first use case is battery storage, as Jorn talked to. It requires a whole nother set of capabilities that exist than what exists today, because you've got limited energy with a battery, so optimization is critical, and the flexibility of a battery where it can a 500 megawatt battery can discharge and start discharging at full capacity within 300 milliseconds changes the game for how trading's done. But what we're also working on is solar and battery hybrid assets. So we see that the world needs more bulk supply of power. Solar farms are no longer going to be built as standalone assets because the daytime value of that electricity is worth nothing. So there's an increasing need to pair solar farms with batteries, and that's the next initiative we're working on. And then beyond that, we're working on data centers. So I guess this probably hasn't been touched on, or maybe isn't even as evident necessarily right now in Europe as it is in some other parts of the world. But what we're seeing in countries like Australia, like the US, in parts of Europe, is an exponential growth in electricity consumption driven by data centers. So you're seeing in the US and Australia and other countries, current electricity consumption from data centers is 4%, and it's expected to go to 12% by 2028. Like, this is unparalleled. It's like nothing we've ever seen before. It's driven by AI. We're no longer doing cloud-hosted data centers. These are massive compute sites. And the features of these data centers, you might be seeing this, but it's driving a growth in consumption that the world hasn't seen for the last 30 years and is reverting back to the long-term mean where consumption grows and humans' quality of life increases, but it also brings some challenges. So going the right way this time. So the first use case in relation to data centers is the US. So you're seeing this incredible phenomenon of the creation of the world's largest microgrids. So you're seeing all of these hyperscaler data center operators starting to build utility scale generation assets at the location of the data center because they can't get connections to power quickly enough. And there's such a race right now to be able to train large language learning models that they'll do whatever it takes to bring power forward to operate these data centers sooner. So we've just given you a bit of a sense as to what's happening, where each player has picked different technologies to incorporate. Many are using existing nuclear facilities. The big trend right now is incorporating gas, whether it's ceramic fuel cells or conventional. But gas is a unique situation in the US where it's cheap, and that is something that's being utilised. Big investments in this icon here is small modular nuclear reactors, and you've seen Meta trialing geothermal. I think encouragingly, like, Google is really trying to work out how to incorporate variable renewables and batteries with their sites, whereas others are more going for conventional sources of generation. But I guess it's a huge and fascinating optimization problem for how you start to operate these incredibly large microgrids, which we're going to be working on in the coming year. Then there's the use case for everywhere outside of the US. So the US is just a unique situation in that that's where all the training is done on large language models, whereas the rest of the world, it's more inference data centers. And so a phenomenon in the rest of the world that doesn't have cheap gas is that there's a lot of variable renewables, and basically the energy transition could get derailed by building a huge amount of data centers that operate as giant flat loads, because you're going to have to overbuild the renewables in order to meet this massive increase in demand driven by data centers. So what we're working with partners on is trying to enable the co-location of battery storage and data centers, which creates an interesting optimization challenge and enables data centers without sort of changing how they operate to sort of align their load with when renewable electricity is generated, which reduces costs for everyone in the system. I guess in the interest of time, might get Jorn to come back up and just ask if there are any questions, and we're happy to answer questions. Go for it. You might... Sure. Go back to the architecture slide. Yeah. Yeah. We haven't heard it just yet. So yeah, the question on the architecture slide. Yep.
This one? Excellent question. So let me try to rephrase it. The question is, here on the architecture slide, we're listing physical models and market models, and the question is, what kind of physical models and market models are these? So physical models, so in the case of battery storage, there would be a model of a battery, which can be rather simple, taking care of SOC. You might also include more detailed efficiency and degradation modeling. Equally, you can use that flexibility there to model, for example, an entire microgrid or data center. On the market side, so when trading BESS, one of the challenges is always that the larger the asset, the more market impact you have. So if you have a massive battery and you start chasing the same peaks as everybody else, those price peaks may vanish. So it's generally wise to have an understanding of the way the market may respond to your bids and offers, and that's what the market model does. Sure. Yeah, another great question. So the question is, if you look at the revenue generated from the entire value stack, so of co-optimizing across all markets, how is that attributed to the different markets? Well, some of the examples we showed were focused on the NEM in Australia, which is one wholesale energy market, and then there's a collection of ancillary service markets, capacity markets. Now, the answer to your question is, these days, 95% of the value is in wholesale arbitrage, because the value of the ancillary service markets has dropped to close to zero. Yeah, good shout. Yeah, so indeed. So we have done this open source release for Australia specifically, which has the market structure which we just talked to. There's also at the end of Q1 next year, we'll be doing an open source release for European markets as well, which are more complex. To your point, there are more markets there, but yeah, that's coming up in the next couple of months. Yeah, I think we have time for one more question. Yeah, great question. So the question is, what incentive do traders have to collaborate, to share tools, to share capabilities? Well, the answer is that a lot of the tools used by different trading floors are in fact close to identical in terms of what they do. And so it's very inefficient to be rebuilding the same capabilities again and again and again and again in different silos. So by making some of these tools available open source, they will naturally be adopted. Because at that point, you also take away the risk of, as a trader, sharing something and then giving away IP. But if a third party makes available open source capabilities, then it becomes almost a no-brainer to adopt. I think we'll have to wrap it up here in the interest of time. So if you have any more questions, feel free to approach us after the session. Thank you.